Hello, friends. Hi, everyone. As promised, we're doing a stream on the 101 around energy vampirism, psychic vampirism, whatever you want to call it, emotional vampirism, just vampirism 101 in the world and dating. So, there's a few things to cover. So, this is going to be part one where we explain what an energy vampire is and just how extremely common this is in the world. It's nothing really fake or from myth. And if it is from myth, it's been in myth for a really long time for a reason in the human experience, thousands of years, and media, everything like that. So, what is it? First, we'll do that, and then we'll cover types of what we will call victims and then how to get rid of it. And I think this is going to be a part one because it's important, I believe, to go over gender. Okay, so today we're going to cover the male or masculine vampire to the feminine victim, but it can go either way. It can go woman to woman, which I discuss frequently on my TikTok lives. It can go man to man as well, woman to man, and so forth. So let's begin without further ado. Yeah, welcome, and let's get into it. All right, I would say it's very much on theme and on brand for what's happening in the world today. Because what is a vampire? A vampire is essentially something that lacks its own life force, sparkle, and any form of significance, and then has the impulse or the need to siphon it off of someone or something else. So, that being said, the first thing I would like to cover is it doesn't actually have to be an individual. I think there's a misconception that it's just a very charming, charismatic person, oftentimes what we would call like a narcissist, but it can be an institution, it can be a hierarchy, it can be anything like on a bigger scale in society. So if you've been to my TikTok videos before and my lives, I don't generally have a high regard for celebrities. And the unconscious person would say something to the effect of there's always a hater and there's always someone who's jealous. It's not that. It's that from a very young age, I just had really high self-esteem and sense of self, not self-importance or confidence. I just had self-esteem, and I'm just not easily dazzled by things. I've never been charmed really easily. And I see a lot of people get like that with time and with maturity or self-reflection. Some people are just born that way. So what is it with celebrity? Celebrity and celebrity dumb, basically dumb, basically is a form of energy vampirism, right? They need your attention to stay relevant to survive because they're so inherently unspecial. And their jobs may be considered to be unspecial. I remember in high school or something like that, coming to the realization, I was like, why would I want that job? You pretend to know how to do stuff. If you're going to act as a cop, why don't you just become a cop? Like, I really couldn't understand it. Obviously, I was missing a lot of the things. It is a craft, it's an art. I think it's an art very few people do very well, but again, it doesn't mean just because you do it, you deserve my respect. I don't really understand, I didn't understand the value of it. And so another thing is politicians. They make a lot of promises. They're oftentimes very charming and well spoken, but they're terrible leaders. And then people that we would consider a little bit rough around the edges or less articulate to be dangerous, but actually, when we look at their actions, they're not terrible leaders. Okay, they just don't feel the need to siphon off your love and appreciation every second, every moment of the day. They're there to do a job. They do their job. They go home. So another thing could be things like the economy, the dating game. Okay, all these things can be considered vampiric in nature. Propaganda is vampiric, media is vampiric. I stopped watching the news when I turned 18. I'm not any less informed than the average person. I could argue that I'm more informed because I choose my media sources or news sources very carefully. But generally, yes, media, television, all these things are considered to be energy suckers, attention suckers. They feed on your attention. They need your views. They need you to keep your eyes and mind focused on those things. So that's the first thing. So I would say if you want to go through your life and reflect and see, um, am I in a position where something or someone can feed off of me, actually have a lot of self reflection and say, what do I watch? What do I let into my spirit? Okay, I really like that saying. I'm not letting that into my spirit. I don't know what it is. If it's music, you can feel that it's not great or positive or something. So you have the power to discern those things. So that's generally the idea of a vampiric consciousness, okay? And a vampiric consciousness is a parasite, it's like a larva. So it needs a host. So you are going to willingly be its host, or you're going to be its host for some time once you're unaware. And then when you become aware, you can make the choice to not keep feeding that. So, what are the traits of a vampire or vampiric consciousness, vampiric entity? Okay, so number one, the very popular thing is obviously going to be, speaking of media, is a bloodsucker. Mm, they're probably a very small subset of people in the occult that consume actual blood, but blood is an analogy for your life force. Okay, blood is very unique to human beings. It's actually sacred. You should take it very seriously. It's like spilling blood senselessly. All it makes everyone kind of get a chill down their spine. It's not something we should normalize. Okay, it's not something we should glorify. So, and over time, an energy vampire, we would say somebody who drains the life out of you. They suck your blood, right? So like a tick, or a mosquito, or they just leech basically. So that's the first characteristic, is something that feeds on you or society in general. Next one is going to be that sometimes they're described as very charming. This actually originally isn't a part of a lot of vampire lore, that vampires are good looking or seductive or charming. They're actually described as quite hideous, which they probably are. But what happened is, I think the human psyche had a need to be seduced, okay? Because when you're seduced, you feel special. This is why love bombing works. Someone makes you feel special. So you feed into that as well. So they kind of made vampires, the idea of a vampire, to be quite charming, seductive, often wealthy, well dressed, suave, all those things. Okay. But not necessarily. They're obviously very mediocre people most of the time. And so, speaking of the need to feel special, a vampire, have you noticed in media, they have to be invited into your home? They can't just barge in, which means that you did something that they are there now feeding off of you. This is never an accident. Whether you did it knowingly or unknowingly, you invite them into your experience. So if we believe things like Abraham Hicks and law of attraction, like attracts like, that which is like unto itself is drawn. And people will say, but I'm not a bully. How did I attract a bully? Because you feel like a victim. All you talk about is being a victim. So because this first part focuses on women, we'll talk about that much later. But you should be informed, but you shouldn't emotionally feed into these things. They don't actually serve a purpose. They just make you feel really low vibration, and then you attract more people like that. And then there's always the analogy that a vampire cannot see its own reflection. This is, just take this really literally. It's funny to me. They lack the ability to self-reflect. They have no ability to self-reflect. They don't realize what they're doing most of the time. Um, and that's why they can't see their reflection in the mirror. And this is so interesting because in psychology and things like emotional intelligence, certain therapies, spiritual work, we have the mirror principle. So what is in that person is in you. So if you want to know how you got to where you are, you take a very cold hard look at yourself, right? Because we're all vampiric in some way, so it's funny. Okay, that's my cat, right? Sometimes I'm having a bad day. I just want to go give my cat a squeeze because make myself feel better. And I wake her up from her nap. And that's vampiric. You think it's cute, but it's vampiric. You're taking something from that resting animal. So if someone comes up to you, they're like, I really need a cuddle, I really need this, I really need that. Yeah, it can be from a caring place, but oftentimes, you know, the world such as it is, we don't really, if we don't get, when we ask for something, we tend to subconsciously kind of take it. We take it, we procure it one way or another. So that's the interesting thing about the mirror analogy. And then there's always the whole thing about decapitation and being staked at the heart. So this is how you get rid of an energy or a psychic vampire, emotional vampire, narcissist, whatever. So we'll come to that in the end when we go over solutions. So the first part is, as I said, what is a vampire and men as vampires? So we're going to get into this first part. So this is mostly geared towards people dealing with men that we feel are difficult or sometimes irresistible, and we don't even know why they have us in their grip. The first thing I would like to state, as I did say, we're going to gender the psychological and emotional principles, but it doesn't have to be physically, biologically male or female. Okay. So just know that this is an energetic experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be lovers. It can be boss, employee, coworker, competitor, landlord. We can even touch on the dynamic of father and daughter as well. So let's start there. Let's assume it's between a man and a woman. But of course, it can be like two. Like, I mean, even in Dracula, I rewatched some of them just to get ready for these lives in the next few weeks. And I mean, Dracula has what's his name? Jonathan Harker, Renfield, okay, all these sort of like men that he can like play mind games with and feed off of and all these things. So it can go man to man, okay? So men as energy vampires, how are they formed? Usually they have unmet emotional or societal needs and they simply figure out that it's so much easier to get what you want or need from another person than having to go out and earn it yourself. So this is very simple. So let's say a gentleman craves power, and in lieu of power. He doesn't have it himself. He doesn't make the money that he wants. He doesn't live in the neighborhood that he wants. The closest that he could get to that type of recognition and respect from people when he walks into a room is by having a really beautiful spouse. So he's going to procure a beautiful spouse. He might not treat her very nicely, but he's basically siphoning off the energy that she brings to his life. Okay. And oftentimes this is where we see abusive dynamics where, in order to keep her, he's going to make her feel really, really small and unfulfilled so she doesn't leave him. All right. Why does this happen for both, for male and female vampires? Is because as we're born into the world, we're dependent on someone caring enough about us to survive. Usually it's the love of a parent or a family member. And even then, sometimes it's not enough or we feel misunderstood, even if we are loved. Okay. So, because we did not get the love that we needed so badly, the next best thing is power, respect, influence. All right. So, I see that in astrology, people with debilitated moons, really badly aspected moons, okay, low receptivity for women, low confidence, vitality for men, they're not bad people, I'm not saying that, but they naturally gravitate towards jobs where there's somebody in the world. And they'll say that, "See, I want to be somebody." They want to be famous. They want to be famous for fame's sake. They want to be doctors, they want to be lawyers, they want to be politicians, they want to be the boss, they want to be self-employed. They want to have respect placed upon them, because they had this nourishment, this inner nourishment was missing in their childhood, usually the love of a parent or the understanding of a parent. This is what happens in all people to some extent, okay? So basically, they have some type of image to uphold that they desire. They desire the world to see them in this way. So if they cannot achieve it themselves, they will get it through someone else. Hence, 40 plus, 50 plus year old men aiming to date 20 something year olds to show that they can keep up. They're still cool. They've still got it. They're virile. They're not sleepy and flaccid and limp. It's like no one cares. You're the only one who cares, but that's sort of like that's a very direct visual that you can pick up immediately because ultimately you're thinking to yourself, what do you actually have in common with that person? Which brings us to a really important thing when we consider vampirism. They don't. They do not. Why? Think about it. Have you ever seen a cute video with a baby cow? You thought it was a cute cow. But now that you know that cow and that cow has a name, you have a hard time eating it because you humanized it. You've given it sanctity of life. Okay. You've sanctified that creature. So, to any kind of vampire, parent, employer, lover, doesn't matter, child, parent, whatever, you are food to them. Food is a tool to be used. Food is not something that deserves respect or recognition. So, vampires are not respecters of persons or personhood. I'm going to say this again. A vampiric energy feeds off its host. The host is a host and nothing more. Its personality, irrelevant. If it's funny, irrelevant. It's probably not going to laugh at your jokes. If you're smart, hi, Nazreen. If you're smart, irrelevant. If you're stupid, also irrelevant. You only need to be what they need you to be as and when they need you to be it. That's it. So we've all heard of these abusive relationships where the woman's like, he sabotaged my birthday, whatever. But for his birthday, I had to be dressed and happy and smiling and take good pictures and plan the whole thing. Why? Because you're a tool and a tool is there to be used. You're a food. Okay. So they feed off rawr, okay? They feed off of you. They don't actually care how you feel, okay? So this is the thing. When you see people that seem kind of mismatched and there's a power imbalance, that's probably why, because they don't actually see you as a person. You have nothing to talk to them about, okay? And it's a lot to do with being entertained. They need you as a source of entertainment. So the really big thing to stress is that they're not actually a threat to you. So one thing I see a lot when it comes to dating, which we'll get to, is it's like you have to arm yourself, you have to be careful. You don't have to be careful. These people are losers. These people are losers. They can't hurt you. You have to invite them in. Why would you invite in and kick it with a loser? You know what I mean? So, media, as I said, is a form of vampirism. You can choose to ignore it. So, start by filtering your life in these small ways. Another, like literally, the Bible says something to the effect of like women should not lust after the flesh of men. Men are not to be worshipped, women are to be worshipped. So, the first thing you can also ask yourself in dating is, do you place too much importance on appearance? Not saying that you're destined to marry someone ugly, but you should look for male partners who have a lot more going for them than just their appearance. So I did meet someone who was really lovely and sweet not long ago, and I just took one look at them and I couldn't pinpoint what was off, but immediately it hit me. They were wearing too many labels, like labeled clothes, and then I think Mina from the Universe Guru made a video about that, like, later last year or this year, something like that, and she said, "It's very feminine." I was like, You're putting too much importance on things that are just not important to a man." So now I know right away, the reason I attracted them into my experience is because 'cause I'm a very masculine woman, and that's a very feminine man. That doesn't work for me. I need, like, an alpha, you know what I mean? So, entertainment, um media, dating. You should be able to spot this immediately when you see it, okay? And this is the thing about reflection and self-reflection. You should be able to see that in yourself. Like I see it in myself, so I know what time it is, okay? All right. Speaking of feeding off of something and the need for power, vampiric energy doesn't actually live or exist, which I find so interesting. The way that we use words and language is like, well, vampires aren't real. Okay. Vampires and the idea of an energy vampire in any sense, psychological or spiritual or real, the reason they don't live and they're considered like the undead is because they don't actually live life. They don't enjoy life. They are stuck in a loop of permanent survival. Everything you do or say can threaten their survival or bolster it. So be really cautious and mindful, okay? Because these people basically just need you to get through the next day. And this whole thing, we consider narcissists and narcissism, what they call their supply, you're just their meal. You're just going to give them a boost for the afternoon for some delusion or other, all right? So don't take anything these people say or do personally ever. It's just not that deep, okay? But know that if that's all that you are to them, then you don't need to be seriously emotionally involved either. All right. So another thing too is speaking of dating and dating culture, I mentioned media. A vampire can be an individual. It can be an individual experience, but oftentimes, if you really pay attention, we do live in a vampiric culture. Some things just have a vampiric essence around them. So let's take it around celebrity dumb. There is this need to drain people's happiness and attention at all times. So, for example, there's a current pop star that I'm pretty indifferent to, but anytime I've pointed out some type of like logical reasoning or criticism around them, I've been faced with a lot of backlash. Okay, they're on like a big world tour at the moment, and finally online, people are starting to say like this person's like a really good liar and like marketer. They're not that great. So here's the thing I find interesting. What a vampire will effectively do is live off of other people's force. So basically, you can position yourself, and you'll see this a lot in the workplace. Have you noticed there's always someone who's positioned themselves in such a way that if you say something about them, everyone's going to go, "Oh, don't say that. They always bring cookies from the bake sale." You go, "Great, but they never do their work on time." And then when I ask them, I'm the bad guy. And then everyone kind of jumps to their defense, even if they don't do anything for anyone. That's how I feel about most celebrities. I don't know why they're so great. If this person's got hundreds of millions of dollars, multimillionaire, some of these cross the billion-dollar mark, sometimes two billionaire pop stars get married. They don't do anything for anyone. They don't build houses. Da, da, da. People say they don't have to help you. Okay, fair. They don't have to help you, but they should also practice what they preach. So if you're independent this and single that, what are you doing being married to a cheater or something or to that effect? You know what I mean? If you're always talking about love songs and then being bitter when you get broken up with or you break up with someone, like what kind of, see, it's very contradictory. And then if you point it out, they jump to the defense. So this is another tactic. And you'll see this. There's a very spiritual, like big public figure on YouTube. They're like a YouTube person, and this lady is a textbook psychic vampire. I'm not joking. The reason is the difference between a regular guru who has something to teach and a vampiric guru who just needs attention all the time to feel like they're going to survive is the idea that they're really special. And this is why I use celebrities as an example. If you take all of that away, ask yourself, is that person really special? 9 times out of 10, you're going to say, no, not really. They're really not. Like Julia Fox in an interview, I think this year or last year, said something like, I don't really like going to events because famous people are really boring. She says, I can't wait to leave and hang out with my own friends. My friends are fun. Like we're funny. Famous people are boring. So that's the truth. And this is another thing I see is any every like 5 or 6 years there's like some mega star that comes up in film, for example, and people fawn over them and they're so attractive and they're so beautiful, and I'm just looking at them and say, no, they're some of them are not even average, they're really not good looking. And then before you call me salty and like I'm getting old or something, I'm like 24. um Actually ask, I would always play this exercise with my friends. I would say, take away the fame, take away the acting gig, take away the money, take away the given importance from society. If that person, hi Eva, hi Eva. If that person, if you walked into your local grocery store and he was in a little vest, like a Sainsbury's or a Metro or whatever, HEB doesn't matter, and he's stocking beans on a shelf, you would not be able to identify that person, not even out of a lineup. Just put him up against some other dude who's a completely different race, okay? You would never even like know who they were. You wouldn't look twice. You wouldn't even look once, okay? That's the truth, because their magnetism, their charisma, their charm comes from the fact that other people just give them their approval. If you revoked your approval, you would find that they're actually not that interesting. So this also factors into dating, okay? So you have to actually this is the point of reflection. You have to be very reflective, okay? Am I doing what I'm okay? So basically culture versus so celebrity culture is vampiric. Okay, so we've got one of the Kardashians now getting heat online, though they don't care. I promise you, they don't care. Please stop caring. You care more than they do. They've never done anything for anyone. Then when have they ever been known to be charitable? What world are you living in? I knew this years ago, pre-COVID. Chris Jenner and I think Kylie or something, they were selling their used like sunglasses and accessories and clothes on eBay, and they weren't even like clean. They were like selling them dirty. And they were pocketing the money. They get their assistants to post it and they pocket the money. Rich people do this all the time. There was was it Nigella Lawson in England? She had she had like a huge library of like hundreds of books or thousands. She had her assistants post the books on eBay to sell. And the reason they found out she was doing it is because the person who wrote the book made it out like a friend, like they wrote it and signed it and gifted it to her, and she ended up selling it. People do this all the time. Okay, this is a vampiric culture. Why do you feel like they're suddenly gonna be like, was it Tokyo Tony? I don't know who she's talking about. She's like, "Why the do I care about so and so? What the F she ever done for anybody?" I'm like, "That's like, what world are you living? These people have never cared." And someone said something on TikTok. I'm sorry, I don't know the user, but they were like, "Why do you care so much? That lady would not spit in your direction if you were on fire." And that's the absolute truth. So the first thing I would say is have a strong line of defense and pull your energy back from media. It just you don't even know how distracted and what a hole it creates in your life, okay? So entertainment and all of that. Now, speaking of that, a vampire or vampiric energy is inherently empty. There's nothing there. That's why there is no reflection. When a person is in a state of vampirism, they have nothing to give and only something to take. And I said state because it's not a permanent state. We can all do this. It's called a shadow side. So, an example is I knew someone who lived in like a small village that obviously some men would like work hard and then drink. And everybody knew when a woman was married to an alcoholic because why? He would beat her to a pulp. Then he would beg her back and feel so remorseful and be so loving and feel so guilty. And she would believe him. Then he would become vampiric again and feed off of her, okay? And then he would become human again, and then the cycle just goes on forever, okay? So, emotional and mental um, intimacy is a really grating form of vampirism because it's an interesting manipulation since the person will say something to you to the effect of, I'm not such a bad parent, I've never beat you, I'm not such a horrible boyfriend, I would never slap you in the face. But he will ridicule you, he'll make you the butt of the joke, he'll spend your money. If you have too much fun with your friends, he'll accuse you of cheating. Okay, all these things chip away at your self-worth, distort your worldview. You start to wonder if there really isn't any good people in the world. All right. So, all those things can also be sucked out of you. And the ultimate way that you know that a vampiric energy has won is when they turn you into that. You know how they say hurt people hurt people? All these people have been hurt and they didn't know how to cope with their pain. This is why they're not strong. They're actually weak. So I don't take pity on them, but I want nothing to do with them either. I'm not here to heal you. I'm not a professional. Go see a counselor, get some healthcare plan or fork over the money, figure it out. Okay. Read some books. Get a Tony Robbins book at a used books bin for $1. You'll figure it out. Okay. So before anyone calls me cruel or unfeeling, remember that the best thing that can happen to such a person is to have an enabler. To have an enabler, like a third party that's like, yeah, don't worry about it. All women are this, and that's okay. You'll find another one. Just get another one. You can have as many as you want. All right. So when they are found out, or you stop supplying them, this is when they become very fearful and they quickly know that they've been found out. So let's give some very simple examples. You're dating someone, things are going great, they desire to be powerful. You both make $50,000 a year, you get a promotion, you make $65,000 a year. You skip home happily to tell them they're not that happy for you. That's a form of vampirism because they cannot fathom that someone is better than them at something. It hurts them. They also tend to surround themselves with people that they consider like beneath them, so they never like threaten their sense of specialness, which again isn't there because you have to get it from other people. It's not yours to begin with. So they will stop all charm. They will stop all pretense to seduce you or whatever. Okay. So the next thing is very easy to spot is vampiric forces. They usually tend to induce states of codependency. So in relationships, friendships is maybe I'll try to cover it today if I talk fast enough. 26 minutes. I got to talk faster. Um, Basically, that you need them for something. So one thing when you start dating someone early on, one way to spot it kind of quickly, and it's not always the case, but it can be the case, is if the person starts to immediately plan things in the future and actually put money on them. So they'll on your second date, they buy tickets to the theater a month away and then a vacation 6 weeks away. It's like, oh, I paid the deposit on that. You can't get out. You've got to like stick around. So I might yell at you in public between now and then. I might ghost you. I might use your body and then not call you and you'll cry. But hey, you're being silly. You're being crazy because we're going to that play. What do you mean I abandoned you? No, 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 no. Do you see? Do you see? It's like you have to stick around. It's like some weird form of codependency. Okay. And other forms of course. So the number one thing you'll also notice is they never take responsibility for anything that they do or that happens to them. It's always someone else's fault. This is also true of narcissists, okay? Narcissists have no equal in their minds. They simply cannot. Either they bully you, which is common, or they're beneath you. They're a victim. This is very common in the female psyche, okay? I'm not saying all women, but this is a common trait of feminine energy is the speaking of vampirism, we have a cultural vampirism around men being dominant, even domineering each other, and then women are our psychological archetype, I suppose, in a sense, is victimhood, and that we can even victimize each other, okay? So in any case, there's no equality here. It's never going to occur. So have you noticed that with an energy vampire or a narcissist, though they're not always the same thing? A vampire can be self-aware. Narcissists, I think only 2% of diagnosed narcissists are actually self-aware narcissists, okay? And this isn't a psychopath. Psychopaths feel no shame. They don't have torment. They don't have a dark night of the soul like a vampire does. They don't have a desire for self-improvement. They're not brave, they're just shameless. Okay. Something's like missing in them. Okay. Um, so anyway, these people never take responsibility for themselves. And if you say, this is my boundary, I've told you it's important that you care for my safety, that you care for my happiness, they take it as an attack and they become defensive. Boom, now you're in that territory. And I was talking about a guru earlier. The difference between a real teacher, a guru just means somebody who's heavy and inexperienced, knowledgeable in anything. And a fake guru is when a fake guru is questioned, they become vicious. They attack. They defend themselves. That's ridiculous. Like Eckhart Tolle is a real guru. And he was saying one time at some like speech seminar or something, and he said, yesterday I was a nobody. Nobody knew my name. Nobody cared. I wrote a book. I went on Oprah. Now everybody knows me. And tomorrow I'll be a nobody again. That's just life. That's a humble thing to say because he's wise. Okay. These people lack wisdom. They're not here to live and learn about life. They're only here to survive. They don't even know what what the end game is, you know? So anyway, it's very dehumanizing to be fed off of. As I mentioned, the analogy of food, you're just food to them. And that ultimately, male psychic vampires generally bear a feminine nature because it's a female quality to take, or it's a male quality to give, right? The womb receives, right? Like women are receptive. Men have an outward directed, action oriented energy. It's very focused. It's like a pointing finger, like very phallic. And women are like a womb. We're open and wide and relaxed, a little bit scattered, right? So when men feel the need to act like women, they're neglecting their own masculinity, like their own masculine principle and their own masculinity. Okay. So that's why I wouldn't be threatened by a woman. I'm definitely not going to be threatened by a man who acts like a woman and thinks like a woman. Okay. So that's the thing. So I just want to kind of talk it down a bit. So now we're going to enter into dating. The main point of this is, hi Katie, hi, happy birthday Katie. The main point of this is not to make anyone pessimistic about relationships. There's no need for that. Okay, Eva says, yes, I'm currently dating a vampire and it's extremely difficult. He's always so defensive and cold and turns everything like I'm offending him because he's a woman and he's scared of you. And I promise you, some men who are unhealed generally like really hate women. They just one thing in general, I think societally in the West, is the way that women form deep, meaningful friendships and we're very loyal to each other and we take good care of each other's needs and all those things. I have always noticed that, even in high school, I've always noticed that men can be in groups or have a social life, but it's never that deep. And on some level, they, not all, like, I mean, people who are just like generally immature or not very self aware or like this, like they're hurtful, you know? Um, They envy that, but they don't wanna do the work. They don't want to listen to, like, if my friend calls me now and I see that they're upset, I'll call them back. I'll say, "What's going on? I've got time." "Yeah, of course, of course." They want someone to be there for them, but they don't wanna do it back. You can't. That's only one-sided. You've got to put in that work, okay? They're so jealous of us. Oh, Nisri is so funny. Okay, so another thing too is when we can, so let's consider dating. All right. Sorry, I have to find some like lip balm. It's like very windy today. I had my window open all morning. I was lighting lots of incense, but their motto, if I can't be them, I'll destroy them. That's exactly it. So speaking of this is perfect, right? It's the idea that someone has to be the bad guy. So our friend, so Eva's actually my childhood friend, which is so cool. The idea that even in a dynamic of relationship dynamic of where people are supposed to love one another and have compassion, the idea that you can flip it and make it so that your partner is the bad guy and they're the reason for your discontent. They're the reason for your anguish, unhappiness, lovelessness. That's insane. You were that before you even met that person. That's crazy, right? So the idea that there must be like a bad person in the mix is always a red flag. So I'll give you a very nuanced example if we're considering female to female vampirism. I had this video on TikTok, it's still up, I think, of just doing what's difficult in friendship. So I believe, and I think I'm right, so it doesn't matter. If you want a relationship to last, you have to mend it. You have to say something if something is actually hurtful to you because you actually care about the longevity of that thing. The chances of you actually getting divorced a month after your marriage because of something you can resolve with communication is probably never going to happen, right? So I think this is true of friendship. So basically, this person was chronically late to everything all the time, but I know that they do it to people. And they've said to me multiple times, I was just screwing around in my room, listening to YouTube, putting on my makeup. And they said, I don't know why I'm late. I honestly don't know. I just can't help myself, right? So I said, okay, but like you can work on that. It's really disrespectful, whatever. And what had happened was I got on a trip, I bought them some trinkets, and then they asked me to meet up with them. But I was getting over like a fever. I got really sick. So I was like really vulnerable and I had the chills and all this. And before anyone like, you didn't go out of your dick, like get bite me. You know what I mean? I was like, I'll do what I want. I wasn't like contagious. I was like getting over being sick, but I was still feeling really fresh. It was like literally, it was January. It was about minus 20 something in Toronto. It was so cold. And we met in the West End, in the overground stations. And I was freezing. And they were like 30 to 40 minutes late. And when they showed up, I was very calm because at this point I just had it. And I said, "You know what? Of course, like we're gonna go out. Everything's fine." Like we got on the bus to take us to the bar, and I said, "You know, it's really mean. Like it really hurts my feelings when you're late, and I'm sick and I'm not feeling good. And I was so looking forward to seeing you. And I came out when you invited me. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to give you these gifts, but you could have been more sensitive to my situation." And she started crying. It didn't make me feel bad, but it was awkward because we were on public transit. So this is the funny thing, right? The idea that someone always has to be the bad guy, including the bad guy. So when you do something we would consider disrespectful or just unnecessary, wrong, whatever, if someone brings it up to you and you turn them into a villain, that's a really big drain on energy because now you've got to go defend yourself, which I will never do. I'll say, you know what, you're grown, you're 26, you can tell time. I'm gonna kick it. I'm still gonna be your friend. We're gonna have fun. But just know this blows chunks. It sucks. Okay. It sucks when you do this. And I've said my piece. I don't care how you feel about it. Because this I've been putting up with this for well, what was it like 13 years? Okay. Like I don't care anymore. So I was like, cool. So that's another thing you'll notice. They'll be like, they never answer when you call. They never answer when you call. Then they call you one time and you're busy at work and they're like, you weren't there for me. What? So it's this weird thing that there needs to be a bad guy versus I need you to be the bad guy. You have to be the bad guy because it feeds me. It feeds me. And you'll see this a lot with people who are divorced. For whatever reason, I actually did date someone like this. Their mother has been divorced for 16 years, had a great divorce settlement, lives a good life now to this day. And she's remarried, okay? To this day talks about how her ex left her. It's just he has to be the villain. He has to be the villain. She's not responsible for why her marriage failed. Can't stand the thought of it. And then I remember the first time I went to their house, them and their siblings got up and left, and then they came back much they left me for a really long time in the on the dinner table with this person. And when they came I hate those people, I run. When they came back, the sister kind of after the mom went to bed, she went, "We just thought we would rip off the Band-Aid because she does it to every time we bring someone home. But now that you've received like the lecture, it was like a 40-minute ramble about how much she hates their dad and all this. They're like, at least now, like that was your introduction. It's never going to happen again. But now you're up to speed." So they like planned it, like they did it on purpose because they knew their mom was like an energy vampire. And I was like, wow, that's nuts. So, so that's the thing. There always needs to be someone and no responsibility. So a really good modern example in just general like pop culture, whatever, is Anna Delvey or Anna Sorokin, the Russian girl who said she was a German heiress and scammed everyone. But again, vampires have to be invited in. They all wanted a bit of what she had. Maybe they have money, but they didn't have title, or they weren't metropolitan and European and cool like her. So they all were clearly really insecure about something and they all got scammed. So this weirdness of proximity to power through relationships is the common theme. This is the vessel, okay, through which these people travel on, a blood vessel. It's a blood vessel. All right. So that's important to note. Okay. Now let's go into dating. Okay. So into dating, first things first, not always, but sometimes masculine energy of an energy vampire tends to be really attractive, suave, tick all those external boxes. They're charming, they're charismatic, they're really magnetic. They say the right thing, they have captivating stories. They're good. I'm a storyteller. I'm related to a storyteller, so I don't say this to like set myself up. But they're captivating storytellers a lot of the time. But the difference is this, they're not their own stories. They're rarely ever their own stories or jokes. They almost always get it from someone else because that's all they do. They steal, okay? Even if it is their own story, pay attention. It's oftentimes something that happened 25 years ago, and it's to this day the only story they have to tell. They just regurgitate it to death all the time. Okay. So it's like they're not capable of living in the present moment because they're stuck in survival. So that's the first thing is they're like kind of like looks and charm. Second, you really have to ask, sounds like a Leo. Sounds like a Leo to me. Amen. Second thing is what do they you have to be very so speaking of the mirror principle, no reflection. Really reflect. Sit down and honest to God ask yourself. I don't care how much it hurts and I don't care if you cry. It will do you a huge solid in the long run. Honestly ask yourself, why does he want me? Just really ask yourself. You know the people who have all those running memes on social media about like whatever 90 Day Fiance, they're like, how can't she see it? Just ask yourself, why me? And this has nothing to do with like judging women or looks or just be so for real. Be so honest. What does he see in you? Oftentimes, the woman is really beautiful. And where she slips is she thinks that he is with her because he likes her for who she is. Truly, he knows so little about you. It's absolutely laughable. Okay. He doesn't care. Like I said, you're just a food to him. But acknowledge that. Be honest. And here's another thing you could do: cut them off. Don't supply them. Don't feed into their mood. Don't give them sex. See how long they keep up that facade. Probably not very long. The next time you see them, if you're out with friends, they'll call you an ice queen or made of wood or something or other, okay? They know. They know that you know. But one of the worst things you can do is show them that you know. Never show your hand, okay? They feed off emotion, they feed off energy. So I would never let them know you're hurt, never let them know your vulnerabilities, and never let them know that you know what they're up to. Because if their cover's blown, it can just cause unnecessary work for you. Because I'm amazing. Duh. No, I know, I know. Also, I just think like love bombing is the natural order of things. I think if you're not being love bombed, something's wrong. So I think that sort of sucks that we have to now discern those things. But basically, that's how it goes, okay? So you invite them in, you're seduced by them because you want to feel special. But you are special. You don't need someone else to make you feel special, right? But they need you to make them feel special. When I was going to text you about how insanely I attract toxic people. I think I lack boundaries or exude healing energy. I don't know. No boundaries is the sign Pisces. So see if you have any Pisces in your chart. Otherwise, yes, healer attracts sick people. I mean, robust, healthy people rarely go to hospitals unless they're in an accident or visiting someone who's already there. That's the problem. I end up saying something. Yeah, okay. Saturn and Pisces, maybe. So I remember years and years ago, I know someone who would overreact to everything their husband did wrong. And I would say to them, stop showing them you're upset because now he knows how to upset you. Of course, no one ever listens to me. Why would they? But that's exactly what happened. You give them the playbook on how to break your heart, which, if we talk about chakras, the heart chakra is the only chakra that has a force field. Everything else can be manipulated, penetrated by an external force. Why do you think sex is so accessible today? Because it's so easy to pervert the Muladhara chakra. It's so easy to perverse the root chakra. It's so easy to perverse your willpower, your money, your intellect, your speech. So easy. You cannot break a heart. You break your own heart. You have to give someone permission to break your heart. It's actually completely indestructible. You have an indestructible core unless you deem yourself fragile. Then you do it to yourself, okay? I'm doing a master's, right? Out of the whole class, I got a vampire. I picked him to be my teammate. I'm struggling like no other. So you have to make your own energy really strong. Meditate, pray, think of yourself as invincible. But this is the thing I want to speaking of weakness, right? This is the thing we really get wrong today is the idea of someone having the upper hand. The idea that women are feeble and weak. Women are not weak. Women were never weak. We were always the stronger sex. But to go around the world feeling like you're weak or um males have the upper hand in dating, you don't do yourself any favors. So, like Iyanla Van Zant has this wonderful expression. Someone asked her, I got cheated on. How do I heal my broken heart? Whose fault is it? How to move forward? She says, when your heart is broken, it's no one's fault, but you are ultimately responsible for fixing your own heart. Okay. So, I'm sorry, you got garlic garlic necklace. Garlic necklace. There you go. Actually, you know what's so funny? Garlic is an antiviral, and I think it's a is it an antiparasitic? and vampires are inherently parasitic. So actually, I do have a remedy for how to get rid of these things on my Patreon. The only reason I never put Patreon stuff into the public because I just feel in principle if you paid for it, why would you then give it out for free? It's so stupid. I know a lot of patrons do that. It really annoys me. I joined a Patreon a week ago and everything on there is on the person's YouTube. And I was like, I felt so duped. I was like, ah. But the other thing is, it's only for people who are serious about like learning. You know what I mean? Like most people don't really care about the occult, so I'm not gonna like waste my time. But okay. So anyway, so you have to know the difference, and you have to stop self victimizing. You invite that in when you self victimize. Okay. So why could that person seduce you? Why were you easy pickings or easy target or easy prey? Why? Because you felt that you could only feel special if someone made you feel special. Okay, so it's not your fault, but you're responsible for your own self esteem. You're responsible for these things. You have to find a way to get out of that. Okay, um, reflect heavily. So this is for masculine vampire to the feminine victim. So ultimately, you have to understand this person isn't really very masculine. Okay, and so it doesn't really matter. And they need validation more than anything. This is actually like food to them. They don't know how to function or operate without it. So if you take it away, they tend to go a little bit berserk. And this is so funny too because I wasn't ready to be called out. Because in lore, right, the way to get out of it as a woman more specifically is in myth how vampires decapitated, like they cut their head off or they stake them in the heart. I always used to think, why the heart of all things? Why can't you shoot them in the foot or like an eyeball or the brain? Why not the brain? Why do you just stake them in the heart? Because I said that, remember that cycle I mentioned? That they go through remorse and then they come back stronger and then they're forgiven, then they feel loved up and they love bomb you. It's a hot minute. It's okay. Then they go back to being a bloodsucker. It's because it shows that they still have one. They just choose to use it sporadically here and there. Not always. Just in little increments, they might throw you a little bit of scrap of love, blow a little dusting of it, but it's never fully given. So they do have a heart. They just don't know how to activate it and live in that heart center. That's their problem. The interesting thing about the decapitation and the vampire and all of us is not to rationalize things. This is something I find in the modern age so stressful, especially in Western cultures where everything has to be intellectualized, which honestly is satanic. Intelligence is godly, the intellectual realm is demonic and ruled by the devil. We'll get into that in another time, but um not everything has to be quantified in the same way for it to be true or make sense to you or the general public. An experience can be true even if the world doesn't understand it. It's no less true to that person, right? So when you are trying to, and I'm so sorry, like women do this so much, it drives me nuts, but they'll say, like, but he called me and he told me this, and then he did the eyeball, he did the thing on the Instagram, and then who cares what he's doing and telling you? How does it make you feel? It feels awful when that person breaks their word. It feels awful that that person used you. So I knew someone who was like, they were with this person for over 10 years, on and off. And she's like, he said we would get married. He said we would live together. He said I would be the one he would propose to next. He said. Okay. And then in the end, she got duped. He met and married someone else in 8 months. Why? Because she ignored how she felt. You can't reason with the unreasonable. These people do not operate on logic. They do not operate on rationale, on reasoning, on intelligence. They operate on instinct. Their instinct is to kill and live. They don't care who they get it from. When you're hungry, circumstances have the taste. Yes, you can sit down to a steak dinner if you're famished and devour it. But you know what tastes just as good? A crumpled up granola in the bottom of a bag that's been there for 2 months. Maybe it's expired, maybe it's not. It doesn't matter. When you're hungry, it's the best thing you've ever eaten and hits the spot because you're starving. Food is just food. You're not special. I'm sorry, okay? That's the truth. He said, he said. So who cares? It's how he made you feel. So get out of your head this incessant need to always be in your head and have a logical explanation, a scientific explanation, a evolution and biology. Like, who cares? Your life is passing you by, time is flying. You don't need other people to go gather evidence and prove that what you're experiencing is valid. You've lived it. It felt horrible. Get away from that individual. So, actually, getting out of your head and into your body is the way that a woman gets out of the situation. Join a gym, start swimming, get into the sauna, meditate, do martial arts, start dancing, do hula hooping, skip rope. Running is relatively inexpensive and works a lot, okay? Just get some good shoes. Okay, if you don't have those, just take gentle walks 3, 4 times a week. Okay, so the point is to get out of your head and get into your body because your body has its own intelligence. Is this making sense to you? Am I making sense to you? See, I had 8 viewers, it's down to like 4, I think. Every time I mentioned about women moving their bodies, people get so offended. It's not like fat shaming or nothing like that. Thank you, Eva. It's just the truth. You cannot make sense of a situation that was not born out of any form of sense, logic, brains, intelligence, smarts. Has nothing to do with being smart. It's just literally when you're hungry, does it matter to you in that moment if you haven't eaten since breakfast? It's like 8 o'clock at night. You are a famished animal. If someone puts Taco Bell in front of you, Wendy's, McDonald's, Subway, Quiznos, you don't care. It's a hot piece of bread with some slabs in the middle. You're gonna go, 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 go. You don't care what it is, right? So get out of your brain. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. It is what it is. What's done is done. Take a good warm shower. I think being submerged in water is very therapeutic, like swimming, baths, those things are really healing. But get into your body, move your muscles around, like try to feel that like purging from you, wake something up in you. Okay. So that's how you get out of it. Okay. So we covered a lot today. If you have any questions, let me know. I have 9 minutes left, so I can go over some other things. But next on Sunday morning, we're going to do the male victims. So men to men and women who leech off of men. Okay. So women are inherently vampiric by nature, right? So people will say, no, like women are the embodiment of nature. Nature is beautiful. I'm like, nature is vicious. Nature is the most vicious thing in the world. Nature doesn't even let weak babies survive. It does away with what's weak, it does away with what's sick. Seasons change, things die, and they're reborn. Storms can be destructive, earthquakes. Okay, nature is beautiful, but it also has self-defense mechanism. Women are beautiful. Women are emotionally intelligent or supposed to be. Women are much more spiritually involved than men and biologically complex, but they also have self-defense mechanisms because precisely because we're more vulnerable, we're also more dangerous. We just don't see it that way. Facts. In presence of a vampire, do we give them approval? Because if you don't, they go nuts. You can be neutral. You can be neutral. So let's say, oh, okay. In my own life, I can tell you, I have a friend that I see very, very rarely nowadays because something that they've been doing for absolute years, again, just drives me wild. Another thing a vampire can do is bring up painful things from your own life. And sometimes they don't even know why they're doing it. Maybe they're unhappy in their own life and they just have to constantly remind you of nonsense, right? So every time and I mean every time we would meet up, every single time, they would say like the most outlandish things like, preach, amen. They would say, have you heard from that guy? The one who like, and I'm like, who? Who? And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. The last I spoke to was 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Half a decade ago. And I said, "No." But they would ask every time we met up. Every time. And the last time I said something about it, I said, "You know what? Maybe we're really different, but my constitution is not like yours." I'm not joking. When I say I'm done with someone, I'm done with them. And I'm not a dramatic person. I'm very logical. So if I tell you you upset me, I'm not speaking to you anymore, right? So I don't talk to them on anything. And then she would dig in and go, "You didn't see his Instagram, you didn't see his Facebook." I said, "No, I unfollowed, I deleted everything. I just," she's like, "You don't check?" Like, "No, why would I check?" You're not in my life. Why would I give you my energy? Why would I willingly feed you? I would not willingly walk into the street and cut open my own flesh and just go like that and wait for somebody to suckle. That's weird, but that's what you do. That is what you do when you go back and look and look and look and look and look. And whether that you think they don't know, you think that person has no way of knowing you looked at their profile. They feel it. They feel it. And a really strong marker of a good energy vampire is they don't age as much. Because they're actually like absorbing your energy, honestly. So she would always do this. I said to her, I was like, I don't care. And I said to her, every time we hang out, and within the first 2 minutes of sitting down, you open with some question that was at one time painful to me. Like she would bring up really horrible bosses and things that have trauma around. Like everyone has trauma. I'm not saying like mine's special. Like she has trauma, we have trauma, right? But I said, why would I get dressed and go to hang out with a friend to have a terrible time? Why would I do that? And she's like, okay, yeah, that's true. That makes sense. And she'd never done it again. So in a way, it feeds her. It makes her feel better around her own life. Another one too is a person who will ask you questions about yourself and then ask you for a favor. So that and women, this is another so maybe we'll just go over time. This is a feminine to feminine vampirism, woman to woman. This happens a lot. Now you're thinking, well, she's always asking me about my life. She must really care about me. She must be a true friend. Oh, but she wants something. But of course, because she cares about me, I'm going to do for her because I'm a good person. I'm a good friend. No, babe, you've been bamboozled. You got hoodwinked, you scallywag. You have to understand it for what it is because you'll know by the way it feels. It always makes you tired. It always makes you feel tired. Sometimes I see celebrity interviews and I'm exhausted. I'm like 2 minutes in and I'm just like, absolutely no, thank you. Okay. Um, Nazreen said, what do you mean they don't age? I look 12. And everyone. Eva, do you think that a part of the relationship is exhausting, that a friendship will be less and it's a better option? Katie, I agree. Maybe we need to become energy vampires and become mortal. Amen. Women are generally, they have some societies like that. I think the White Tiger Society is like a secret female society. They're not vampires, but they learn how to, and like Tantra, you learn how to summon energy and store it in your body so you're ageless. But Eva says, if a relationship is exhausting, will a friendship be less? Is that a better option? This is perfect. Thank you so much for asking that. Why? So, the difference between a relationship and a friendship is a relationship tends to have more expectations and there's a physical dynamic. So, there's something that I want to stress a lot now that in the modern age and hookup culture is so prominent, right? Access to the body, like I said at the beginning, that the actual act of drinking blood is extremely niche, extremely rare, whatever. The same thing goes for physical intimacy. Sex is like the lowest, most express form of energy vampirism. It's still not good and you shouldn't succumb to it, but any type of mental or emotional draining is far more sophisticated. This is why the Casanova, the charmer, the boyfriend, the sex fiend, the dude who's attractive, the dude you hook up with, the dude you want to go to bed with, those people are mediocre. They're not actually masterful, you know? So if you were to demote them by taking away your physical privileges, by taking away your heart and your romance, and only being in a friendship, I don't think it would actually be easier because they would have to evolve. They would have to if they couldn't evolve, they might leave your life, which is all the same. It's like the best, but it could actually make them a better vampire. So I'm not saying to stay there. Don't stay there, right? But yeah. I mean, I can rent too much and drain people. That's how I maintain my youth. That's then I guess you've met your match because when I rant and I listen when I listen to Katie's voice notes, I'm like, pray because I love it so much. It gives me energy. So we energize each other. That's so funny. But generally, so Eva's question, and this is actually another good point, is the freedom to be oneself. You'll find that narcissists or vampires don't enjoy giving you the freedom to be yourself. But the difference between, again, a narcissist and a vampire is the vampire knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing. The narcissist does not. They actually don't think they're doing anything wrong. So that's so that way we're letting them into our energy. Yeah, you have to be careful. So you have to ask yourself why. What is it in you that feels the need to have that person there? Why? Why do you need them in your life? Um, it's so interesting. So anyway, back to feminine, right? So this person will ask you for something. Do vampires attract vampires? Ah, they can, because it's a state of being that's temporary. So this is why sometimes people will say he was so loving in the beginning and then he changed, but then I stayed because he also had good point. So this is something I really don't want to say because I'm scared I'll get in trouble. There's a vampy dynamic, yeah. So think about it like this, right? So let's say it's a real life vampire who feeds on blood, and he seduces and charms a young maiden who's very beautiful. So it's all he's ever wanted, and she feeds him her blood. But it comes at a price because she's very jealous, and she says, "Well, you can't feed on other people. You only feed on me, and you'll feed every night at 10 p.m. before I pass out. Also, you can't do it when I'm on my flow, and you can't smell like that. You can't wear Sauvage, okay? You have to wear Chanel Blue or something." And he's like, "Damn, it's expensive to keep this, you know? This is supposed to be a food source, but this food source comes with commands and demands." And then he says, "But babe, what if I'm terrorizing a little Balkan village and I get hungry? Can I just feast on?" She says, "No, that's blood infidelity, you know?" So it's like the rules of monogamy or something like that can be applied to these things. And that's not saying that she's now vampire because she has standards, but he's going to consider that to be draining him because he had much more fun before doing whatever he wanted whenever. He had much more fun when she was the only victim. Now that he feels like he's also the victim of something else, he feels hijacked. But you'll see this a lot in dynamic in young people who get married who are not very self-aware. So talk about this a lot. It's so funny to me how like married men are like, "I need time with the guys." Male companionship, camaraderie is very important, of course, but they'll travel with them. I don't understand. You're a married man. That boyish stuff is not becoming of a gentleman, right? You travel with your wife or your children, or you don't go at all unless there's some reason that you have like some special circumstance. Maybe for a 20th wedding anniversary, you get sent to like a golf trip for a week to Scotland with a friend or something. But you don't get to do that anymore because you have a different relationship dynamic. But what they will do is they will think of it as a restriction in their freedom, a threat to their freedom. So they victimize themselves in a position that they've willingly entered. So weird. And then the other person can also do it. So they'll say, "Why can't I flirt with people at work? We're married." It's like, "Oh, that's not my idea of monogamy." So it takes different shapes and there's different types. So this is why it's all an energy game, and you can't just say this is this and this is that and this is black and white, because we all do it to each other. I said that at the beginning. We all do this to one another. So let's cover the woman to woman. Okay, so this person, and it's so bad being an energy vampire or psychic vampire that I think I think he started the Church of Satan. I think it was Anton LaVey, the famous Anton LaVey, the Satanist, whose like daughter was like probably a clone, like for Taylor Swift or something. He actually said that they're the worst kind of people. Imagine that for a second. Imagine that for a second. Okay, like one of the people who kicked it with Satan for a lifetime actually said these people are the worst. He said they're actually bad. And he had a very loose definition on what good and bad was, and he actually said these are actually bad people because he says they always make you feel bad for not doing them a favor. They just That's all they do. They just take, 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 take. So yes, you can have a dynamic with two vampires because if you have something this person always wants and that person has something you always want, that's called a codependent relationship. You just take turns draining each other, so it's very possible. But yeah, so women do each, and I talk about this a lot on the live. I haven't made it into a TikTok video yet because I just know that audience, like I'm one of those the members of that audience, but a lot of things are very surface level and quick, and I don't enjoy having to preface everything I say 30 times. It's just boring, and to a smart person, it's very annoying to listen to. So I'm really mindful that I make content for people who read between the lines and they're very deep. They're very deep thinkers. I don't have to always defend or express myself a certain way, right? But I've always said, and I'm going to continue to say, there's generally very little good about too much of anything, okay? Not like money, but I mean This is why I don't like things like group chats or girlish things. Like generally children run in groups. Adults don't really do that. They find their sense of self, okay? So unless you have like a study group, like we have a self-improvement group that we meet every month, we have a group chat. That's different. We're not codependent on each other. But because feminine energy is inherently vampiric, when you get female friendships and female dynamics, too many women, not enough masculine energy, what they will often do is because we need masculine energy. We need the solar influence. When we don't get it from men, we start to siphon it off from other women. And this is why, and like women are more socially vicious than men and all these things. This is just the truth. Like I said, we have self-defense mechanism. Girls are smart, okay? Um, they will, and I don't mean this in a good way, like, they're heartbroken, they call their friend or something like that. I mean, when they go back to the same person for the 50th time and you've given all the advice you can give, you've maybe thrown them some rent money or made a statement on their behalf, or God knows what got them a job, and they throw it in your face. And they do why? Because you're enabling them. They always have someone else to run to, right? So you become their male figure. You become their problem solver. You become their financier. I don't mean that in a healthy way. I mean in an unhealthy way. And I'm sorry, I have to preface it again. I don't mind solving people's problems. I don't mind listening. I'm good at that. That's not a problem. That's the role God assigned me on earth. I've always known that. It's not an issue. But there's a limit, right? There's a limit. And this is how you'll know the limit. If a person won't take your advice, they generally will not respect your criticism either. So if you compliment them, and they're like, "Great, I love getting compliments." But the price of that compliment is they should listen to you when you have something discerning to say. If they don't, they actually don't respect you. You're a form of food to them. Okay? Bars. Like Reverend Ike says, literally the goat. He doesn't like committees because there's also someone that has an alternative motive, like the bad news committee. There you go. There you go. And that's why with occultists, I'm really weary of people who belong to some type of like whatever organization or coven or something. Okay, I'm going to a couple of meetings next month just out of curiosity for like research, but I've never joined anything. I just don't, I can't run with other people because there's always like the need to revise and have rules. It's just the human experience. So anyway, so women vampirize other women probably more than they vampirize other men because we have it under the guise of like friendship and womanhood and sisterhood. But you'll know because it makes you tired. I mean, it's exhausting. And another one is like I keep talking about being enabled. So there was that I'm going to use that pop star who is like, it's not the pop star's fault, but I think that they've cultivated a fan base that's a very bizarre, impetuous, like petulant childishness is the vibe that I would use. And there was this woman who called into a radio station in Australia. Then they had them call her best friend to tell her that they have tickets to that concert and they can't miss the concert. And the friend said, "Hello, it's my wedding. It's once in a lifetime." They said, "But going to the concert is once in a lifetime." So I'm not calling them a bad person, but this is what happens when you're always going, "Yes, girl, get it." No, not everything is yes, girl. That's a stupid decision. Someone, someone was in that woman's ear. Thank you for the hearts. Hi, Elizabeth. Tongue warming in her ear so hard, telling her to buy those tickets. She didn't go alone. She had to have gone with someone. And that person now ruined that girl's friendship and that other lady's wedding. And she can be considered someone who's like a vampire. She probably didn't want to go alone, convince this other girl to go with her. If you were my friend, I don't care if you don't like it. I would tell you straight up, are you out of your God loving mind? Are you out of your ever loving mind? We're going to our friend's wedding. Even if I'm not invited, I would tell you, go to your friend's wedding. What are you doing? Ew, that's so childish. So that's one example. Another one is, like I said, you can't criticize them. You can't say anything about them. They'll burst into flames like a vampire. Will just spontaneous combustion. They can't take it. Um, so yeah, I don't like things that like work in groups. I'm very the vampire. I'm very, very suspicious of that. I just think, why do you need this? Because there's power in numbers, but there's also safety in numbers. But if you're truly strong, you don't need that. You can be outnumbered and outgunned, and you will always win if you have strategy and common sense. Okay, flames. So with that, I hope this has been useful to you. So let's recap. How do you get rid of it? Decapitation. Get out of your own head. Feel it in your body. When the phone rings, you see that person's name come up, do you feel a sense of dread or do you feel excitement? Do you feel like, "Oh, I can't do this right now?" Or are you like, "You know what? Let's see what they've got. Let's see what they've got on their mind," right? So you've got to be honest with yourself. You remember, yes, they do have a heart, but if it's not active all the time, doesn't really matter in the end. Why? So I mentioned in the last live I did, there was some prayer that I found that said something really, really sweet. Somebody was asking for a partner, and it was like an advice column, and the advice to them was this little prayer, and there was just a few words I remember in it that said something to the effect of, "And God, bring me someone who is loving for love's sake," meaning that they would just be a good husband or wife just because that's who they are. It's not you that evokes it from them. It's actually who they are. And that's ultimately what you want. You do not want to be the exception. You want to be the rule. Because if you are the exception, you're kind of in danger. Okay. And but this is again the thing, the need to be the exception is rooted in a lack of self-worth, meaning that someone else has to choose you for you to feel special. No. So I'm always a little bit side eye, not side eye, I raise an eyebrow, I would say quizzical brow when someone says, "Oh, he swore up and down he'd never get married. He said it wasn't his bag. He said he didn't want kids, but for me, he did that." I'm like, why? So you can hold it over your head for the rest of your life? So it's not to make anybody pessimistic about love or romance or anything like that, but it's just a good exercise in self-reflection, a good exercise. And even, I mean, no reflection makes me laugh. I know he's not like a historically known to be a good dude, but Marilyn Manson has a song called "No Reflection," and the lyrics are really, really on point. I think at some point he went from being a very spoiled, like American only child, like whatever boy who got everything he wanted or whatever, to becoming self-aware. He says, "I don't know which me that I love. I have got no reflection." And then he says, "This will hurt you worse than me. I'm weak 7 days. I'm weak." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what weak people do. They hurt other people. They That's all they know. They were hurt. They had no coping So anytime someone does this, like a bully who bullies, I think we can empathize to an extent, but don't glorify that and don't enable that. Because in an adult, it's not like they're a child. In an adult, it is the ultimate failure. It's their own moral, emotional, and mental failure of their own choosing to not know and to choose not to learn coping skills for stressful situations in life. They choose to be that way. Okay. No one can actually be that stupid. Nature doesn't allow it. There's intelligence in a blade of grass. There's intelligence in a bird. There's more intelligence in creatures that can't speak. They don't have mind and speech like humans do, and they display it every single day. You know what I mean? And you expect me to believe that because someone gave you a wedgie in the 6th grade when you were 11, it's okay for you to raise a hand to a woman, or it's okay for you to go slash someone's tires or something. Like, no, I don't buy it. You're grown. You're grown. Learn to cope with stress. Learn to cope with insecurity. Learn to cope with yourself. Learn to cope with life and stop using other people. Okay. Any questions? I know. Can you believe it? I'm only like 12 minutes over. Usually I'm like here for 2 hours. I'm like, and another thing. While we're at it, we'll just do the whole thing. But yeah, next week or on Sunday this week, we're going to cover men who do it to other men and women who do it to men. So male victims. So today we covered female victims, victims of other women. Hi, Messini. Women who do it to other women. Very, very common. And just in terms of the occult and tantra, just not good. Not good to be around women all the time. Look at things like female professions like nursing has such high instances of bullying. There's a reason for that. Um, Same goes for men, but I mean, today's example is women. Okay. So another thing too is, like I said, women's friendships run a lot deeper. They're a lot more meaningful, in my humble opinion. Like I love my friends. I love everyone in the world, and I love men, but women are essential to me. Like I can live without you. Women, my sister is essential. You know what I mean? You're like, eh, but my mom, they're essential. They're essential to my existence. Do you understand? Like I don't want to know life without women. But that's a healthy way. In an unhealthy way, when they don't get their needs met through men, they automatically turn to women. And you'll always know because it's someone who's very draining. Okay. Even if they're sad and crying, they're draining. You don't feel sorry for them anymore. You're just like, you're doing this to yourself. I don't care. You're grown. Thank you, Eva. Thank you so much. Cries and debilitated and combust Venus. Me too. Twins. So beautiful. So okay, so somebody asked about like would they blow up? I would neutralize I think it was Unizreen or Katie. Just who said it? I don't remember. But you neutralize the situation. Just neutralize the situation. I wouldn't show them anything. I wouldn't gloat. I wouldn't even be like, haha, I did that. I would just be like poker face all the time. Literally, like just the older I get too, I'm just less bothered by things. Okay. So I'll talk about it more on my Patreon. But if you're interested, learn the spiritual principle of being unbothered. It's very helpful. It has a specific name. Um, and in some people's charts, like people who are tamasic, they're a lot better at it. They could definitely do that. But there's, any type of constitution that you have or guna, you can find a way to do it. You know what I mean? He asks me why I'm not reacting and throws a tantrum. I just play dumb. Just, I don't know. Sorry, what you say? I didn't hear you. And then if he gets really mad, say, I said I didn't hear you. And then turn it, yeah, just flip it on him. Just be like that. Just say, when I was 6, I don't know if you have siblings, just lie. Just say, my little brother stuck a Q-tip in my ear when I was reading, and so like I can't hear very well. You have to like speak up in this ear. And then if they do it on this side, and then you forget and you lie, and he says, I thought it was your left ear. Say, then one day I passed out when I was drunk and a homeless man pissed in my right ear, so I can't hear good on that ear. Like just run with it. Just make them feel really stupid. You know what I mean? Like there's always a way to do it. You're 24 and talking about getting older. I'm 26. It's Massini, we lie about my age. We have fun. I'm not actually. It's because I'm an amazing energy vampire. Clearly, the energy vampirism doesn't cure fried bleached hair, but in another life, we'll get it. When I find my next victim, I'll have shiny hair again. Just ignore it. Honestly, just play stupid. So, in the book that I read, uh, the example that they give is a woman went to dinner. I'm 49. You're a baby to me. That's fair, fair, fair. Fair enough, fair enough. Um, uh, she went to dinner with a man and she was so enthralled by him and she was hanging on to every word that he said. Okay. And so she basically relays this experience to the author who puts it in her book. And the woman we don't know her job at the start, but what happened was she was like, wow, am I going to hear from him again? And she was so, like enamored by this date or whatever it was. And then the next day and the day after, she wakes up and she looks in the mirror and she goes, I'm just feeling like my skin is looking a little dull. My hair is flat. I'm overweight. I'm not stylish. And she goes, wow, I felt like on top of the world yesterday. Today I feel so ugly compared to this like demigod who basically acknowledged me. So we're already cluing in. He kind of basically energy vampirized her because she woke up with low self esteem the next day, right? But she couldn't figure it out. She doesn't hear from him, whatever. She goes to work and then she runs into him as he's coming out of like a coffee shop. She's going into a coffee shop at a meeting or something. And she sees him for a second and they exchange quick pleasantries. And then she says she's feeling good that day. She goes in the bathroom. She looks in the mirror and she says she thinks her mind's playing tricks on her. She's like 15 years older. She's feeling bad about her life. She's feeling bad that she's single and she never got married. And she goes, I felt fine this morning. Like, what is going on? She still can't put it together. So they go to some meeting with their work or whatever. And then a few weeks later, he has a party and he invites people and she shows up. And she says she comes into this room and there's a long table and he's at the head of this table and he's kind of like leaning over and he's telling this really engaging story and everyone is hanging on to every word and he just has them enthralled, right? And she says she sat there and the spell broke. It broke the spell and she no longer thought he was charming, Suave, stylish, GQ, attractive, smart, interesting, none of that. Why? The anecdote that he'd given, the story that he told, she said was the story she told him on their date. Verbatim. Verbatim. And she said that's when she realized he has no original ideas. He has no personality. His personality is a mishmash, a smorgasbord of everything he'd taken from anyone he'd met at any point in time, even as simple as one lunch date or one dinner date that they had one time. He would just take these people's jokes, take these people's stories, take these people's analogies, experiences, insights, and we see a lot of that in the modern age. People say, this is really good for you, this is really bad for you, and you say, how do you know that? Like, you don't have to be a doctor, but actually, like, how do you know that? And you know how they know that? They saw it on Facebook. And so you're like, I'm not discrediting the information, but I'm discrediting you because you never endeavor to actually do anything the hard way to actually learn anything. The power of the ick. Exactly. You just take you're just skimming off the work of other people, what they've learned. You're taking their credit, taking their credit, taking their credit, right? And then this is the next part. This is why I say to stay neutral. This is the next part. She says the following weeks, if they were at a party or something like that, because he noticed something changed in her face, she said she decided not to out him in his own home. She decided not to say, "Oh, wasn't that the story I told you when we went to lunch or whatever?" She decided to keep it to herself now that she's figured out he's a psychic vampire. And because she was gracious, he's now threatened by her. But so you know what he did? She says at one point when we would like be with our colleagues in a bar or our friends because they like ran in the similar circles, he would say, you need to, let's say her name was Laura or Claire or something. Okay. You need to be careful around, let's pick a biblical name, Jezebel. You need to be careful around Emily. You know, she's a therapist and she can tell what you're thinking. She knows your deepest innermost. She knows you from the inside out. She's always reading people and kind of like egg her on a little bit. And she'd be like, ah ha ha ha. And he was like, and she would never go, yeah, because you stole from me. Because if she did that, she would look crazy. That's why you don't show your cards. Because if she did that, it would automatically make him look like the cool, calm, collected, smooth person who's charming, who's like, are you sure that was your story? Oh, I don't even, you know what he would say? I'm betting he would go, I don't even remember having lunch with you. He would wipe his bottom with her so fast. And she said, oh, I never admitted to understanding. I never admitted to knowing anything. I would just smile gracefully. And he didn't like that. But I've cornered him. I basically cornered him because either he would be everybody would go quiet and go, "Oh, really?" And then he would have to keep talking because she wouldn't say anything and he had no way out, so he would just change the subject to save face, right? Because these people are empty. They have nothing. They have nothing to threaten you with either. Sometimes it's harder to do the easy way because living in past and regret in the head, that seems harder than doing the work. I know. That's the thing. Like Abraham Hicks says, they said people read our books, they come to our seminars, they say that they've read or followed our work for like 10 plus years and they never get anything they want in life. And we ask them why, they just never do the work. They never do the work. It's so interesting. So I think, yeah, it's just easier to stay there. It's easier to stay in the victim mentality. And also, it's generally a habit. It's just generally a habit to like people who do those things. It's easier if you've done it for a long time, it becomes a part of you. I remember this is gonna sound crazy, but I remember in high school, I had this thing because like I'm obviously like outspoken and lively and I like to joke and jest and all that. I don't it would just bother me so much in my because I was young and like immature in my teenage brain when people wouldn't credit you for something that you said. Like when you're a kid, you're like, oh, you're copying me. But I got copied all the time because I was funny. So guys would copy me, girls would copy me. And I remember thinking, that's it. The next time someone tells a joke that was my joke and they don't credit me and they do it like in front of you. They have audacity, right? They're audacious. I'm gonna call them out and then I'm never talking to them again. And that's just how I did. I'm a Scorpio moon. I don't do takesies backsies. Like if I'm done, I'm done. So I would like throw every popular boy under the bus. Every girl I'd say, that's the joke I told in the hall of heavens ago. You heard it. And then they go, "Okay, yeah, Monica said it." I was like, "Well, it's not funny now. It's because I spoil the mood because you didn't know how to give credit when credit was due." And I'm like that. I'm like, I'm a sore loser, like when I wouldn't even call myself a loser, but like when people would copy my stuff on TikTok, I just block them and then it ruins the fun for everyone. I just take down the whole video. And then people will ask about, "Oh, I was learning that." I was like, "No, no, no, no one gets it." Because that person won't apologize and people won't do the right thing. Now no one gets it. Okay. Like if I was given the power to run a company, can you imagine how sore and like I would be so salty. Like every time someone's like introducing whatever, if I came up with like garlic french fries and everybody did garlic french fries, but I did them the best, I would say all of you line up and apologize and give me some of your profits or no one's getting the garlic fries. And I would just hold everybody hostage until every single customer stopped eating there and coming to me. Nobody gets the goods. Like I'm just like I'm just me. Hi, Reem. Thank you so much. I miss you, Reem, my queen. Hi, Devang. Cigar says, reminds me of Goodwill Hunting bar scene. I swear we have similar experiences, but I'd say it and my friend would say it louder and then people would laugh. I can't stand that. So I think Katie and I have problems with like being heard. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it just drives me crazy. But you see, it's born of insecurity, right? So something in me was obviously like, I'm so tired of this happening. Why does this happen? So I was like, I'm just gonna stop talking then. I'm just not gonna do it. And then people noticed. They were like, "Oh, why aren't you saying like Monica, you're so fun. Why don't you tell us that?" And I was just like, "No, I don't want to." And then I realized early on, so this all happened in my teens. I remember this very, very well, especially around university. Is that you're always invited out because you're always fun and I like being the DD and stuff like that. So you're quite useful. I thought, wow, isn't that so funny when I take those things away, suddenly we don't have fun, which means I was fun. So now I'm holding everyone hostage. No one's having fun until I show up. I guess I'm not showing up then because you don't want to do fun the way I want to do fun. Like I want to do brunch. I don't want to go clubbing. But if I go clubbing, then we have to do one brunch every time I come out. So it's about realizing your own worth and all these things. So it's very good protective measure. All right, this live again is an hour and a half. I think I'm just gonna have to make them an hour and a half long. Thank you so much for being here. Have fun. Many birthday wishes to Katie and all people born on this wonderful day. And if you're born on a leap year, how lucky for you. You get a birthday tomorrow. All right. Any questions before I skedaddle? I still have readings up on Etsy. I really have to start posting my books. I have so many books to post. And on Sunday, we're going to cover masculine vampiric tendencies. So, the masculine psyche in terms of vampirizing. Okay. So, generally, the seducer, that's all feminine stuff. Anything really to do with like the flesh, uh, that's just like not much of a threat. Like, I'm sorry, you know what I mean? But if these people are easy to get rid of, they're a lot easier than you realize to get rid of. So you just have to ask yourself some cold hard truths. Why are they there? Why are they there then? Don't touch the gumballs. I'm like, why are they there then? Okay, ask yourself why you. And if you don't like the answer, then you probably hit something. You've hit a nerve in yourself, so you can get out of it. So no matter what it is, you can always get out of it, but you do have to be pretty honest. Okay, so see how interesting it is how all this vampire lore, bad experiences are difficult to forget. It's only true if you tell the same story. So Abraham Hicks says, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking, and you can change your thoughts. So I don't believe that. I do think, okay, let's say they're difficult to forget. What is important to you? Is it more important to identify with the past that shaped you, as negative as it was, or to look forward to a better future? Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much. So, if it's more important for you to be happy, you will find a way. Like winning the Olympics is hard, it's difficult. But if you want to be a winner and you want to be an Olympian, you will wake up at 4 a.m., you will go running, rowing, weightlifting, getting yelled at by some Russian coach, like when you're like 14, you'll do it. You'll find a way. But you have to determine what's more important. So, this is why it's so funny. They say like vampires don't have a reflections because they don't exist. It's because they're not real. And you have to look inside yourself to find out why are you attracting these people, why are you attracting these circumstances, these situations. um a lot of the times people, especially men, they want to be in relationships where they aren't challenged. They want to be in a relationship where they get everything and do nothing. So, what is that a reflection of? A powerless person. They want to control something because they're not in control of themselves and control their lives. So, they're effectively very weak people. Okay. So, then the question is for the woman, let's say, why are you with the man you don't even respect? She can't respect a man who doesn't respect you, doesn't respect himself. So, it means you don't respect yourself. So, it's okay. RESPCT on yourself, on your own name, and then you'll find a better man. It's just like that, right? Like it's easier said than done, but that's not the point. It's still possible, which means we have to go and try. You're the only person who can change your life. Your life cannot be lived by another. So all things are possible in a good way and a bad way. To tell you that it wasn't isn't true. It is, but don't do it. Do the right thing, do the good thing, make yourself happy, make your life good. All right, we're going to end off at exactly an hour and 30 minutes. All right, I love you all. Thank you so much for coming. Happy birthday to Katie and everyone else celebrating today. And I will see you Sunday at 11 a.m. Go check out my Etsy and my TikTok, Instagram. I post updates there about what I'm going to do. Until next time, bye for now.